Okay, today I'll be refuting the claim that career technical education has a positive impact on the careers of students enrolled in such programs. Now, before I begin, I'd like to reintroduce the term CTE. CTE is an acronym for Career Technical Education, also known as Vocational Education. Now, the opponents have supported his claim with three secondary claims. First, he states students in CTE have more successful careers compared to those who do not engage in these programs. Second, career technical education programs increase high school graduation rates and motivation to go to college. And third, CTE offers resources for students going directly into the workforce instead of college. For the first secondary claim, he quotes, those participating in vocational education had significantly higher annual wage earnings than those who did not. Here he commits a fallacy of composition. Based on that same article, the study is conducted solely with disabled students. According to the Institute of Education Sciences, 13% of the whole student population is disabled. The advocate is using the data from the minority to prove the data of the majority, and this is invalid because the data is not representative of the whole. He also quotes that the academy students had 18% higher earnings than the control group students 4 years after high school graduation. Here is a faulty sign. The study indeed does say that it had 18% higher earnings, but it does not accredit those results with CTE courses. The article goes on to say, one thing that the ongoing Kempel study has not been able to show is whether the career academies have any effect, positive or negative, on achievements. The advocate wrongly assumes that higher earning is a reliable indicator that CTE programs work. But the study itself is inconclusive and disproves the advocate's inference. For the second secondary claim, he utilizes an article titled High School Dropout and the Role of Career and Technical Education. He cites a combination of approximately one CTE course for every 2 core academic courses is associated with the lowest risk of dropping out after other variables in our models are controlled. Here the advocate suppresses the evidence. According to that same article, it states we have not definitively established a causal relationship between course taking and dropping out. The article goes on to say that we found that different concentration of CTE and academic courses do not have delectable effects on the likelihood that students who are old for their grade will drop out. The article does not support the advocate's claim and furthermore makes numerous suggestions toward possible causes, all of which it demonstrates no concrete evidence for. The third secondary claim, the advocate delivers statistics from the Bureau of Labor saying in October 2013, 65.9% of 2013 high school graduates were enrolled in colleges or universities. This has no relevant information whatsoever to CTE. The statistics does not mention or include anything about the CTE, and the advocate is wrongly using this statistics to prove his argument. In addition, there are inconsistencies. He quotes career academies do not steer kids away from college, but then he contradicts himself by saying that CTE gives the option for students to join the workforce without college. This contradiction disproves his secondary claim that CTE courses are beneficial and motivates the students to go to college. In sum, the advocate does not have sufficient evidences. He fails to prove that CTE has a positive impact on students because his argument is based on inferences that are based on inconclusive evidence.
All right, Michael, it looks like you're mostly just challenging the way the advocates use their own evidence and whether or not they can make the inferences that they're making on those particular points, which is fine. If you're going to go straight for the refutation approach, that's okay. Although I do think some evidence would help you in a couple of those places to make those arguments a little bit stronger. I do think there might be an opportunity or two for a counterclaim that really does address the general issue, but we'll get to that in just a second. On the challenge on the first point, you kind of explained that there's a fallacy of composition that's going on here because the study that the advocate uses consists of a larger number of students who were in a specialized category. I think they were disabled students, and therefore it was not very representative. Okay, except that it seems to me like that would suggest that if they were a bigger part of the group that was successful, then we might even make the inference that this group would be more successful if they didn't have that particular characteristic, unless there's something different about the education that they receive because of those disabilities, and I'm not sure what that would be. Again, I think you're on the right track here, challenging the way the study and the research is being used, but maybe not giving us quite as much information on the research, even though you are criticizing it. The other criticism of the reasoning there was okay. You know, that the evidence didn't really say it was the same kind of training that they were talking about. That's all right. And I thought that your explanation about the challenge to earnings is okay, but it's a press. It's the kind of press that you could make immediately after the speech. Well, maybe earnings aren't really the standard that we ought to go by on this. One other press that popped into my head and that's after 4 years. Well, that's because, you know, when students get out of college, you know, they've been working for 4 years, it takes them a while to develop into some of the careers they have, whereas people who are in these CTE classes, for instance, may very well have peaked at their earnings capacity 4 years after where they are. Maybe that's the explanation of what's going on there. I don't know. Like I said, that just seems to me like another press that could be made there. On the second point, I think you did a nice job where you're citing the evidence that the advocate used themselves to kind of dismiss the conclusion that they're drawing from that research. And the inconsistency there is one of those things that would tend to undermine our willingness to believe what's being said there. The third point, I'm not exactly sure. You have got a criticism of some general statistics that are presented saying that it's not really applicable without an explanation about what it was doing there in the first place, and maybe it doesn't belong there. This is one of those places where I think you've got some opportunities for some counterclaims to present that would contrast the advocate's position with your own. I've heard a lot of things that criticize the success rate of students who attend these colleges, the fees and the loans that they have to take out on these kinds of issues, and the chances of moving into a job immediately, that there is a period of time where there is a substantial amount of unemployment for people in these situations, and I think there are some legitimate criticisms to be made there, and that might have been something that I think would have strengthened your argument at this point. It just feels like you kind of finish a little abruptly also. All right, thank you.